Views and opinions expressed in this production are those of the individual and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Shooters Nation or our sponsors. Information provided on this show is not a replacement for legal counsel or professional training. Listener and viewer discretion is advised. This is especially true on live shows.
Welcome to the Shooters Nation podcast, the show created for you, the armed citizen. Join our hosts and subject matter experts as we talk about guns and gear, practical training and knowledge, Second Amendment issues, and the firearms culture. Be sure to join us after the show at shootersnation.com and become part of the Shooters Nation.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Shooters Nation podcast. I'm your host, David Yancey, coming to you from our studio just outside Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm joined today by my co-host, Mark Lancaster of Squared Away Customs in New Hampshire. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, man. It has been a while. I guess, 3 weeks really since we recorded, but it feels more like a month.
Yeah, it's been a minute. That's for sure.
It has been a minute. Yeah. Well, I want to know about your holidays, but I also want to not skip our good friend Jordan Linscheid, who's joining us again tonight as well. So, Jordan, how's it going, man?
It's going well, David. Thanks for having me on again.
I am intimidated by your beard. The listeners, they are listening, not viewing. I'm viewing. You have a beard, and I sadly no longer do. I look young and sexy though, don't I?
Like a young and sexy John Candy, yes.
Is that, oh my God. Like Uncle Buck John Candy. That was good. I like Uncle Buck John Candy.
Yeah, so, let's go with that.
Yeah. All right, let's go with that one. Oh my God. Oh my God. All right. So just to take care of some business before we get going, we want to remind everyone that you can connect with us after the show at shootersnation.com, and you can send us feedback there and sign up for the Shooters Nation Mail Blast mailing list. Just as a footnote, the members of the Mail Blast mailing list got to do a holiday hangout with us just before the holidays that we did not record. We are not going to air, and that was a lot of fun. We'll talk about that here in a second. But you can also follow us on Instagram as at Shooters Nation Radio and on Facebook.com/Shooters Nation. While you're at Facebook, be sure to sign up for the Shooters Nation community on Facebook. I repeated that. I used Facebook twice in that. This is really, there's too much Facebook in this spiel. Anyway.
Now 4 times.
One more time? Yeah. It's kind of like in advertising where you have to say it 4 or 5 times to get it, to stick in their heads. So Facebook, that's where you can interact with us, other listeners, and some of our guest subject matter experts. And finally, if you like what you're hearing, you can help support the show and make future episodes possible by becoming a Patreon patron at patreon.com/shootersnation. You can also help support the show for free, and we really hope that you'll do that by leaving us a positive review on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, et cetera, and so forth. So, gentlemen, it has been a minute. I feel pretty rusty about this, but as I mentioned a second ago, the last time that we were all together, we actually did a holiday hangout with some of our listeners, and that was a lot of fun. So, any highlights from that you guys remember?
I know one thing for sure is pretty much every guest has written me on a personal level saying, when are we doing this again?
Right. So I've connected with some of the guys on Facebook and on Instagram and stuff. That was a lot of fun. I think the thing that stood out from me is just how cool it is to hang out and talk guns and gear and industry stuff. And, we mixed in some bourbon and, I think cigars may have gotten mentioned there once or twice and just had fun. And yeah, I agree with those dudes. I want to do it again. I think that we should try to do that. I don't know, like once a quarter if we could, just to do a hangout. And for, you listening, basically the system that we're using right now to connect the three of us across the great expanse of the internet, we open that up to, I think we had about 5 or 6 of our listeners come and go through the course of the thing. We said originally it was going to be about an hour and a half, 2 hours long. And maybe the thing that really stood out to me was after we all kind of, we said, hey, good night, everybody. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. 3 hours into the thing, one of the listeners, he still had his mic open. He's like, oh my God, I can't believe that was 3 hours, and I'm over here going like, yeah, dude, me either. My ears hurt from having headphones on that long. So it was funny. It wasn't like, oh my God, that was 3 hours long. Why did I waste my life doing that? It sounded more like he had fun, but it was funny. It stood out. So anyway, if that was you, we heard you. So
that was funny.
Yeah, it was. So,
and mostly because he thought it was ended, right? And he didn't.
Right. Yeah. It was kind of, we had one of those moments the other day at work where we were all standing around the conference room, and I'm looking at our really, high tech conference table that had microphones embedded in it. And like, they've got a little ring around them that lights up red or green if the mic's open, red if it's not. And I think everybody thought that the call was over, and they all start, just chit chatting and whatever. And I look down at the table and it's still lit green. I'm like, y'all are like doing the, the hand across the neck, cut it off. Y'all are going to say something sooner or later that you're going to regret, because those people are still listening. It was funny. So nobody say anything they regretted. It was a fun time. All right. So I guess orders of business, man. So Mark, anything interesting happened over the holidays? Anything noteworthy or?
Not really. Just cool, calm, collected, family, fun time.
Yeah.
Holiday season. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Trying to think. Nothing really. No, nothing.
Okay. All right. Jordan, what about you, man?
This is a good holiday season. It was busy, involved a lot of travel and a lot of felonies, allegedly. But
oh, that's right. That was another discussion from the Hangout. That's right.
It's only a felony if you're caught.
That's right. Jordan rolls heavy when he travels. So yes.
Yeah, especially across the Mississippi into the land that shall not be named.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah. But no, had a really good time with family, and actually had a few discussions with family members that are looking to purchase some handguns. I've got a lot of family that are into hunting and have shotguns and a few rifles, but are really curious about getting their first handgun. So I had some good discussions with a cousin that's just turned 21 and another uncle and friend of theirs. So it's always exciting when you can kind of introduce someone into the sport and the mindset, if you will. And it's just good having, I guess I felt really good knowing that they valued my input enough to come to me with questions like that instead of just going to their local gun shop. And
well, you were essentially a mobile gun show, right? I mean, so
yeah, I can be. Yeah, when
right
when S hits the fan, I'm going to be I describe myself quite often as an aspiring arms dealer. So, because I have way too many guns for just me.
Right.
But, when the day comes, hit me up.
Well, that's cool, man. That's very good. So, the theme that I'm hearing is good, relaxing time with family and friends, and so that's good. That's very good. That's what I hope everybody else had listening. Yeah, the holidays. I think the really cool thing about it, and I want legislation passed to make this a thing every year, is that Christmas should always be on Tuesday, and New Year's should be, mathematically the next Tuesday, because that gave me like 2 weeks off from work, and I only had to use like 2 vacation days or something. Right? It was ridiculous, but I've looked ahead to the holiday calendar, December calendar for 2019, and it's not as good. It's like Wednesday, so it's smack in the middle of the week, and I'm gonna have to burn some vacation time if I want that same experience again. But it was nice. I did not want to go back to work when January 2nd rolled around. It was hard. When my alarm clock went off, I was like, why? What is this noise, and why is it happening so early in the morning? It's like, oh yeah, I got to go back to work. So, yeah, well. Got to go make the money so we can buy the toys. Well, yep. So any new cool guns or gear over the holiday season? Did you guys treat yourselves, or anybody treat you to something new or exciting?
Oh, I got something different and new.
Did you?
Yep. I got a new Glock 34.
34. All right.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do with that?
I don't know. It's probably my 5th one. Okay. I buy them. I feel like I need them, and then I sell them. And then I'm like, And then I see one and I'm just like, I think I need that again.
Right.
And I keep buying them. I don't understand why, but
So
they really are great guns.
if you put a comp on that, is it what, the size of the 17L or okay?
Probably. Yeah.
Okay.
But the cool thing about it is, so what I like about the 34, especially now, is because right now I'm carrying with a X300U. So it's really long. And with the 34, the same length of the light as the end of the muzzle.
Okay.
They're flush.
They are flush,
So
yeah.
it's not any more uncomfortable to carry the 34 than the 17.
Nice. Very nice. So is it already milled for an optic, or is that a plan?
Yeah, so that's the other thing. So
Okay.
do I want to go down that rabbit hole and have that done? Probably not something I'm going to do, but no, it doesn't.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, so I've got the 119 that doesn't have an optic on it, and I've got the, and I've got several 19s that don't have optics on it. Scratch that ATF. I've got 119 only. But no, so got several without, one with. I kind of like lately I've been carrying the most current one, the Gen 5, without an optic. And I don't know. I mean, I couldn't tell you why, other than the fact that, maybe I mentioned it in the holiday hangout. I don't think I mentioned it on the last episode. I had the frame on the Gen 5 worked over by Jack over at Rocket City Stippling, and he did a fan-freaking-tastic job on that frame. It is the grippiest but most carryable, comfortable texture that I've felt anybody put on a Glock frame, and hands down, that thing is like my favorite right now. So I've been carrying that thing a lot lately. But anyway, we just kind of like rabbit trailed. I made it all about me, and it was about you. We were talking about new things you got, so my apologies. Anything else cool?
No.
Okay.
That's it. No, that's about it.
All right. Jordan, what about you, man?
No, haven't purchased anything new recently. Just been trying to kind of keep my finances together. I've got a wedding looming in about 2 months.
Right.
So
responsible thing to do.
Yeah, I'm actually planning on selling a couple of guns here in the near future, but it'll probably get those funds will probably get rolled right back around into something that I want even more.
Yeah.
So no, I actually, one expenditure, I guess you could say I did, was I went and put about 800 rounds through my carry, which unfortunately is still a Glock.
That's
until
not
the
unfortunate.
optics ready CZs are released.
Okay.
But it's the first shooting I've done in 2019, and I guess if you count shooting at squirrels over Christmas, that's one thing. But
oh my gosh.
but first time I've actually been out and practiced my handgun in a little while.
Right.
Just, holidays have been pretty crazy and hasn't been the best weather, and so no, I just earlier this week I got out and blew through some 9mm, and now I'm running a little low on full metal jacket stuff, and I'm just looking at the hundreds and hundreds of rounds of HSTs, wondering,
Right.
did I just shoot this stuff, or
I mean, it's good to burn through your carry ammo and rotate it occasionally, but I'm with you. That's an expensive squirrel ammo. So
I may have stocked up on a few too many 50 packs back when you could purchase HSTs for LE pricing. So got a few there.
Yeah, very good. Well, so you've been saving money, but then you've also been taunting me and trying to get me to spend it lately. So
that's right. I'm an enabler.
Thanks for that. Yeah, you are an enabler. I sailed through the holidays without buying any firearms. Really focused. My wife and I did on the kids, and I tried to focus on making sure that she had some things I knew she wasn't going to buy for herself, because she's one of those people that will, just not buy anything for herself and do everything for the kids. So I focused on that, and that's really what I enjoyed for the holidays. After the holidays, did what I said I wasn't going to do. I picked up a SIG P365, made the mistake of shooting one, and all of my preconceived notions about it went out the window. I had kind of gone into that discussion with myself saying, this is really no better than the M&P Shield 9. Why would I do this? I've already got a gun that meets that need, until I shot it. And then it's like, holy cow. I mean, it's kind of like the Doctor Who TARDIS of guns. It feels much larger as you shoot it than it is. And I don't know how to describe it any better than that, but the sights are phenomenal. The trigger is phenomenal. 10 rounds of, JHP 9mm in a package this size is phenomenal. It's smaller than my Shield. It's thinner than my Shield. It's a great little carry gun. I'm going to have to send some work Corey's way and get him to bend some Kydex for me over at Square Away Customs here soon and do a holster for me. So, and then Bourbon may or may not have been involved in my most recent firearms purchase. That one, I credit you and Francis Marion and, just for really making me come off of money that I wasn't expecting to spend. But when FN announced the 509 midsize, for whatever reason, my ears perked up and I thought, that's what I need. That's where I need to spend my money. That's the foolish thing I need to do this week. And I have one of those coming. So I hope it's good. Otherwise I may swear off Blanton's, and I don't want to do that. So it would be a shame to swear off Blanton's. But
it's not Bland's fault.
It's not Bland's fault. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. It was, how they say now's the, 3 drinks in, now's the time to tell everybody what you think. It was Blanton's was whispering 3 drinks in, now it's time to buy that gun. And so it was really easy. But hopefully I have that in the next week, and I can talk intelligently about it the next time that we're on the show. So
I'm just really curious to see what you'd purchase on tequila.
I'm just not a tequila guy.
You don't want to know.
I'm really not a tequila guy.
I love it.
Do you really? We'll talk about that at some point, maybe on another episode or something. But I have one that my brother gifted me last year at his wedding. I like it, but it's I think it's called Santos or Santo. It's a smoked tequila. It's good. It's interesting. It's kind of like, if you like bourbon, you would like this. So anyway, all right. So the Shooters Nation podcast. That's what we're doing here. The year's off to a roaring start, right? So a lot going on in the industry and also in the Second Amendment and firearms rights space. And I think there's a lot that we can talk about today. And so this show, we talked about this before we began recording. This show is going to have a bit of a unique format, and we'll elaborate more on that as we get to it. But first and foremost, thinking chronologically, just a week away, SHOT Show 2019. And Mark, you're going, right? So what are you looking forward to there?
Boy, there's a lot this year that I'm looking forward to. I think one of the ones I'm looking forward to most is that new Zev 9mm gun.
Are you really? So I'm curious about that. It seemed like Zev managed to create a Glock.
Well, they made a very versatile one, that's for sure, that you can change grip modules like a P320. That's pretty significant.
So I guess for the listeners that maybe haven't seen the announcement.
Yeah. So basically what it is a trigger pack like a SIG P320, but it's all in one encapsulated unit from the rail all the way to the back of the beaver tail. And in that unit is going to be your trigger pack, your trigger bar, your trigger housing unit, the striker, not the striker, but the connector, all of that is all dropped into this one linear piece. And then what you do is one pin, you can attach a grip module beneath it.
Okay.
So the trigger drops through it. You slide this guy up, throw in one pin, and you have your grip module mounted on. Then you stick on any slide you want. So I'm not thinking that it's going to be the greatest thing in the world, but I'm definitely excited to get my hands on it.
What do you think about the fact that they've included the rail in that module? Because It seems to me that they've limited the length of the slide now by including the rail in the module, unless they're going to offer some sort of interchangeable rail, or maybe when you
they make slides for, I mean, that's their bread and butter is slides. So they could make a slide that's a 34 from a 19 up to a 34, no problem.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I got you.
And that's kind of my thought. Or they may come out with a different size. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that, I'm looking forward to that gun. I'm really looking forward to the Daniel Defense bolt gun.
Okay.
And I mean, there's lots of things that I'm looking forward to, but more than anything, I'm looking forward to an event the most, because this will be the first year that I've got into the industry day at the range.
Right.
So I will be shooting all of the new guns coming to market all day on Monday the 20th.
Very fun.
So I'll just be going Monday the 20th or 21st. I forget.
21st. Monday is, yeah.
Yeah, 21st. So I'll be literally walking up and down lanes of all manufacturers, just shooting their new guns and checking them all out and burning up other people's ammo, which is going to be awesome.
You'll be hanging out with our friends over at Polymer 80?
Yep, I'm gonna go in there and spend some time with those guys, and because they have a booth at the industry day at the range. So yeah, that'll be a good day. Very cool. But I'm trying to think what else, like what other big guns I'm really looking forward to. What's it called? Is that the Akron?
The Archon, the
oh yeah, the Archon. Yeah,
the Strike B.
Strike B. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It looks like very CZ-ish with that low bore axis.
Yeah.
Looks like you get really high on the grip.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to getting my hands on that too.
I came really, really close to ordering one of those from Omaha Outdoors over the holidays. I had my finger on the buy now button several times, and I just thought, I want
no Blantons that night, huh?
No Blantons that night, but I thought I really want to see one of these in person, or talk to somebody who has and who has shot it before I sink that kind of coin on what is, in my mind, essentially another Glock 19, M&P 9, that size gun, especially when those others are $300 less easily than the Archon. But yeah, the Archon looks really neat. Everything that I've heard about it, people are just raving, saying that gun is totally worth the money. And I guess if you stack it up against like an agency Glock build or a Zev Glock build, it's cheaper than those, but it's got a lot of the tricks in it that you would be paying for, right? So it's pretty neat. Plus a totally new I don't want to call it like a bolt design, but essentially it's kind of the locking block and the barrel design are pretty innovative in order to make it sit that low. So
yeah. I think Military Arms Channel did I think I saw.
Did they do a torture test on it?
Mag. They did like $1,000 round mag dump or something with it.
Yeah.
I forget why. I'd have to watch it again, but they did something with it.
Yeah, I'd have to see it. I'd be really impressed if
is it a metal lower? Is that what it is?
No, it's polymer.
Okay, maybe I'm thinking of a different gun then. Disregard. Because I think that part of this review was that because it was a metal lower, it was going to be a problem under continuous fire that it gets hot in the hand.
Huh.
And
I wonder if bits of
was it the trigger? Was he talking about the trigger? Because I know there was
the trigger getting hot. That's what
polymer. It was the polymer shoe of the trigger that was. They were getting a lot of heat transferred through. I remember that. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the one complaint. But from what I saw online when those were initially released, some of the first models that went out for T&E guns had issues with the recoil spring weight, but it seems like they've gotten that all figured out, and I haven't heard any more complaints. I think they just kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit by just because of the delay in getting it to market. But other than that, I haven't heard any complaints related to the actual function of the gun. Everyone that has one, I haven't had hands on one, but everyone that's got one that's got the proper recoil spring weight seems to be very happy with it. So,
yeah, I'm anxious to hear what you think about it. Yeah, that might, that might push me over the edge. Really,
it'd be really great if they were arranging it, I could shoot it.
Yeah.
That would be great.
So I'm guessing, obviously, part of the big thing for you, SHOT Show, is the friends and the contacts and the people that that you get to regroup with. This time.
So it's a great part of it too. You only get to see them a couple times a year. So
right. Yeah. Are you going to try to do NRAM this year, the NRA annual meeting? Or
I will be for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think we're still planning on doing that as well. So that'll be fun. All right. Anything else with SHOT Show that you're particularly? I mean, we're going to talk about some stuff, and before we did the episode, I put together a list of stuff that I've seen that has already been announced or quote unquote leaked into the wild. New products coming out at SHOT. So we're going to go through that, and I think that'll be a fun part of the show today, talking about some of the stuff that's piqued our interest. But
I know some things that don't pique my interest. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, we can talk about those too, I guess, if you want. There were definitely one or two in there that I thought, why would you be doing this? But yeah, that'll be fun. So overall, SHOT Show, anything else in particular you're looking forward to, or should we roll down into the
let's just jump into
new
it.
stuff? Okay, cool. This was not in there, but I'm going to mention it, and I've got to give a shout out to the guys over at the Gun Collective. They were talking about it again on a recent episode. The Laugo Arms Alien. Had you heard the news about this? So we talked about this one. It looked pretty cool, right? This is the gun that's very futuristic looking.
Yes.
The slide sort of like almost reciprocates like a 22 caliber slide where the whole thing doesn't move. But the news on that is that they're only going to release 500 of them this year. And it's going to be very limited edition with a bunch of other stuff. And I think it's going to come with I forget what the red dot optic was. Maybe like
it's a Seymour.
Yeah, that's what it was. I was trying to remember.
How does it, let's interrupt.
Yeah.
How does an up and coming gun company trying to put a stake in and make something of themselves,
right,
think that they're going to survive doing 500 guns in their first year?
This feels like a bootstrap to me. Like they're trying to bootstrap, the production of the remainder or something. But have you heard? Do you know what they're asking the MSRP on this limited edition?
Yeah, you told me, and it was stupid enough that I forgot.
$5,000.
There you go.
$5,000. I mean,
give or take 10%.
Right. Yeah. Of course. They're. Well, you're gonna have retailers that mark this thing up because of its limited production run and all that nonsense. Much like the guys over in the Gun Collective, when they said it, I first of all, I nearly spit my coffee as I was driving into work listening to their podcast, and I thought there are so many other things I would do with $5,000 beyond that, right? And that is just, I don't know, for even at speculative value, thinking that gun's be worth a ton of money later. I'm not seeing it. Not at $5,000.
I bet for $5,000 you could buy an Avidity Arms PD10 right now.
Right. Well, believe it or not, the Avidity Arms PD10 is in our list to talk about. And when you were talking about the Archon and Jordan, you talking about the delays, how they kind of shot them in the foot with the delays and stuff. I thought, well, they beat the PD10 to market, so they got that going for them. But yeah, man, the Alien at $5,000. It's granted, it's a nice kit. It's got different slide rail, assemblies and things with it. It looks like, but I can't even convince myself that. And I hope I'm not putting my foot in my mouth with anybody that just loves these guns, but like the Wilson Combat EDC 9, I'm not going to spend $3,000 on that thing either, right? I mean, I immediately start thinking about the other guns that are similar in design to the EDC 9 that I could buy for a lot less money. And they may not be identical, but like the CZ PO1, is roughly the same size and mag capacity as a EDC 9, and you can pick those up for $500-$600. So I don't know. The only thing with the Laugo Alien is that there is nothing else like it. So I'll give it that edge that, I hope they sell every one of them that they make, and I hope it inspires them to produce another version of it.
Edge. I mean, it is an edge if it's a production gun that's affordable, but it's neither things.
Well, and it also,
it's like a concept car.
It doesn't do anything that this SIG P365 in my hands doesn't do. It fires a 9mm bullet downrange away from me. And that's what the Laugo Alien's going to do for $5,000. So I find it really hard to justify it. I don't know. I'm sorry if I'm trashing a fantastic gun that we all look back later and go, man, that thing was phenomenal. It changed the world. But I don't know. I hope they come out with a cheaper version so that I can shoot it.
It sounds like they're planning on that. And in defense of it, like, yeah, it's a ridiculous MSRP for me.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of other guns on the market that start at that price that don't come with the whole competition package thing. And that's really
true.
That's what this is marketed for. And I think they're just trying to get the top competitors, especially in Europe, to start using this thing. And that'll be their marketing, and probably sell cheaper models.
Yeah, but why would they put a Seymour sight on it if that's what they were after? That's kind of...
I'm not really sure. It's a popular one. I don't know exactly why. A lot of guys with the checkmates, CZ checkmates, they come with the Seymour. So I'm not sure what it is about competition use.
Yeah.
I think it has something to do with being able to get the dot down low and having a big sight picture.
Okay.
But having competed or used them, I don't really know the benefits there.
Yeah, me either. So I'm talking critically about something that I guess I have no context to do so. But it just seemed like when I saw the $5,000 and heard them talking about it, it's like, oh my God, no. There are 1911s that legitimately should bring $5,000 because of who made it or how it was made or whatever, and I'm not rushing to buy those either. So. Yeah. All right.
Funny you mentioned that. There's one of those on our list, David.
Is there?
And it doesn't the site. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess we're going to go down through the list. So let's hit it. Right. So, gentlemen, I guess you've looked at the list of things, that I had found that have already been announced. Who wants to take a first swing at it? Either talk about the thing that you are interested in seeing or the one that you think is stupid, and just tell me which it is.
So I'd like to talk about the Avidity Arms PD10.
Okay.
And I know Rob, and I've spent some time with Rob and had some good conversation with Rob. And I know he's a very controversial, whether you either like him or hate him type of guy in the industry, but I know he's done a lot for the industry. That's for sure. But this PD10 taking 3 freaking years to hit market is just bonkers. And, I've held it. I've shot it. One of the first prototypes he had at LFOD 2 years ago.
Okay.
Feels nice in the hand, shoots okay, but where's the stinking gun? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the Glock 48 came, and I think, or the 43X rather, or 48, either one. And then I think that basically takes all the wind out of that gun's sail, because it was the only one in that niche, which is why it was going to be whatever success that it got, and the ice following, the rupping is following. But I don't know that it's going to be as successful now.
Yeah.
And I mean, to the fact that there was they made a meme, and I just sent it to you guys, and on Rob's Facebook page, he's got a picture of he and his wife in a wine cellar posing like they just drank a whole bunch of bottles of wine, and they're like sleeping on the floor of this wine cellar. And I took that picture and I made it say Rob Pincus 6 hours after seeing the leaked photos of the Glock 43X. Because
right.
it's after all this time that they've been working on this gun, for Glock to just splash this one out there.
Yeah.
It's just basically a PD10. It's a single stack 10 shot.
Well, I saw something that Rob was posting on either Instagram or Facebook right after the Glock 43 and the 43X and the 48 were announced. And he was talking about the Avidity Arms PD10. And he said, at the end of the day, really what I wanted to see was a single stack 9mm. And he said, I'm paraphrasing, but basically what I had preferred that we got ours out first. Absolutely. Am I upset that there's now an option from Glock and other manufacturers? No. And I thought that was a good sport, of him.
No, it's definitely a good sport, and
right.
he doesn't really have a choice at this point.
Yeah,
you know
right.
what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
But it's not going to help him. That's for sure.
I hope that the PD10 has some sort of difference about it that makes it a compelling option for somebody who maybe doesn't like the Glock 48, in particular the 48, because I think the 48 is really its competition at this point. If you're listening and you've not heard the Glock 48, shame on you. It's 2019. Catch up with us. But that it's essentially the Glock 19 single stack that everybody, quote unquote, everybody has been asking for years, and it's, that's really what it is, right? It's a Glock 43 with a slightly wider frame that holds 10 rounds and in a longer slide. And it's slightly longer, which is curious, than a Glock 19. So if you haven't seen it, go Google it. It's everywhere on the internet. But yeah, that's the PD10's competition now. So how do you go up against that? Right. Especially as a unknown arms manufacturer.
Yep.
Well, good luck to Rob. I hope that it's successful. I hope that he does get it out this year. I had it in the notes. Avidity Arms PD10. Finally? Question mark? Maybe? 2 question marks? I saw that it will be at Industry Day. That you guys should be able to shoot it again, but there's no telling if it's going to be announced. I think the curious thing was, is it Eagle? Is that who the importer is?
Eagle Imports?
Yeah. Okay. So Eagle Imports apparently devoted 2 full pages in their catalog to the PD10 this year. So maybe that's a sign of things to come. I don't know. All right. So, anything else in the list that jumped out at you that you're, or even not in the list, right? I gave you guys a link to the other page too, but is there anything that just like you saw it and you thought, why in the world is this happening?
Yeah, there's definitely one that gave me that reaction.
I knew I could count on you for that.
Actually, there's quite a few, but
right.
Notably the Springfield XDE 3.8,
yes,
4.5-inch pistols.
Right.
I still, to this day, have yet to encounter anyone that's well, no, I know of one person that's purchased one, absolutely hated it. Our buddy Mark Cohen down in the Bayou territory.
Right.
But other than that, this has been a gun that I just haven't seen anywhere online. I don't even know. Feels like a mythical creature, and now they're making a unicorn with a slightly longer horn. And no one's even been hunting, the original.
Yeah.
I don't know what market they're competing with. There's lots of people asking for a single stack, compact, or subcompact, PO7, something like that. But that's because of brand loyalty to CZ, and they've been building hammer-fired guns for a long time. Springfield's known for the XD series, right? Yeah. XD, XDM, XDS. Who that's got Springfields was asking for a hammer-fired XD with an even more abominable trigger than their standard models?
I don't know. I'm just happy it doesn't say grip zone on the side of it. Right? Yeah, that's the only plus I can throw out for that one. It's
when they came out with that gun, I'm just like, well, it's probably going to be pretty big under the XD fanboys. You know what I mean? So we bought the mold at Squared Away Customs so we can make holsters for it because it's a concealed carry size gun.
Right.
It's a Springfield. We don't sell a ton of them, but we sell enough of them to warrant buying the molds for the popular ones. Bought the mold. I honestly think we probably made holsters 5 times for that gun since it's been out. And the XDE has been out, 2 years now?
Right. Yeah. So the XDE it's a single stack hammer fired 9mm.
It's an XDS with a hammer.
Yeah, with a 3.8 inch barrel or a 4.5 inch barrel. The 4.5 inch barrel, when I look at this gun, I think, if Nazi Germany had continued and they had evolved the Luger, this is what it would look like. And it's just stupid looking.
I thought you were going to say we could have avoided this nonsense.
Oh, well, maybe. I don't know, right? I mean, what is the Amazon series, The Man in the High Tower, where like, World War II panned out totally differently? Yeah, maybe that would have averted this. So, but no, this is a really weird looking gun. I agree with you, Jordan. That is one of those that made me scratch my head and think, why? Maybe second only to, and I'm scrolling. Where did it go? It's got to be here. Do I search for the garbage section? Where is it? It's scrolling. Oh, there's the Chiapa Rhino Nebula. That's a strange looking one, but that's not really. Oh, here it is. The Remington RM 380 Executive. Because nothing makes a gun more executive than wood grips and a bitoned finish, right? This is why
looks like it would pair perfectly with the fake wood dash in my Buick.
Oh, yeah, you got like a 1982 Buick LeSabre hanging out, with the false burl wood grain trim. That's exactly what this gun would do well with. Yeah, that is I don't know. And I mean, I've got friends that work for Remington, and trust me, the one in particular that I'm thinking of, I think that probably gave him a rash, and because he tries so hard to get them to build particularly rifles that we would all like, right? I mean, he's pushing them to do really cool stuff, black rifles and precision rifles, and here's a way that we could package this chassis with this barrel and this action, and people would just gobble it up. And I think he's stymied because it makes sense. And like the people that created that stupid gun that we just talked about look at it and they hear about his ideas like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to release another Pocket 380, but this time we're going to put burl wood grips on it. Right. So I don't know. I bet that poor guy just beats his head into the desk every time this stuff happens. So, all right. Jordan, is there anything in the list that you saw that you're just looking forward to?
Well, it's not on the list, but I mean, as if you don't already know, I'm excited to see more about. I'm sure the CZ USA guys will have the domestically produced optics ready models of the new P10F and C and probably S there.
Yeah.
There's no word on when those will all be shipping. There's a few P10Fs from Czech Republic that have been imported, but the optics ready models are supposed to all be in-house, and they're talking first quarter 2019 allegedly on the optics ready models.
Now,
so
I don't know if this thing is shipping, but I'm gonna, maybe you've seen this, but I saw this the other day on Gunbroker, and it's still out there. There's a CZ P10F optic ready available right now they're asking $619, right? And it's immediate checkout, and I don't see anything in there that says this will ship when it's available. It looks like they've got it on hand, ready to go. So, don't know, man. It may already be out there in some people's hands. So tell me, what's the thing with it? Being produced in the United States. Are they only doing certain models of the P10, or all P10s being produced here now?
No. So the optics ready models specifically are going to be produced here in the United States.
Okay.
And yeah, so they're adding the P10F and P10S to the lineup, which P10S is going to be pretty similar dimensionally to a Glock 26.
Okay.
And then the P10C, is almost identical to a 19. The factory mags might add, just because of the difference in the grip angle, might be about an eighth of an inch longer than a 19 mag, something like that. But 8th to 16th, it's darn close.
Didn't I
and
see
then
that?
the F? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, sorry. Didn't I see that they're gonna do one that's like, it's the longer slide of the F with the C grip frame?
Yeah. So it doesn't sound like that's planned for the U.S. market at this point. They announced it in their Czech catalog, unfortunately. So the F slide is going to be, somewhere between a 17 and 34.
Okay.
Closer to the 17. And the flush mags will hold 19 rounds rather than 17. So So it'll be a little bit longer. And in their Czech catalog, they announced the P10 SC, which is confusing because a lot of people use that. Oh, we want a subcompact P10. Well, the S stands for subcompact. The SC they're using for semi-compact. So it have the full-length slide and the compact frame. I'm wondering if they're not just holding off on that until, so they don't kind of bastardize sales of the full-size model here in the U.S. upon launch. But I've got a buddy that got his hands on a P10F, and he's, you can swap the slide onto the compact frame with no issues. So I'm sure there'll be plenty of people like me with a compact that get an F and do a slide swap.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I'm a little disheartened that they're not going to do the SC in the States, at least not immediately. So, for whatever reason, maybe Glock's got that one up their sleeve, but I still hold out hope that they're going to do maybe they would call it the 17X, part of their crossover series, the 17 slide with the 19 frame. That would still be, a hit, I think. But until they do, our friends over at Polymer 80 will just keep cranking out the heckload of those, the frames, and I guess what is it? Brownells even has the custom, Brownells branded Glock slides that does puts a 17 length slide on a 19 frame. So there are options still, but man, it seems kind of dumb that Glock still hasn't produced one of their own. So maybe. Yeah. All right.
The only other notable thing about the new P10s is that they changed from the ambi mag release to a reversible one. There were some complaints about how the mag release broke in.
There weren't some complaints. That was like every complaint imaginable was about the mag release on that gun.
You know what? Those complaints were from people who didn't actually shoot because they're trying to drop an empty mag.
No.
It was a legit issue.
Yeah, my first mine was that way too.
Super hard. My second one was smooth as butter.
Yeah.
It was 100% legit.
I hear what you're saying, but
with the slide locked back, there was no issue.
Well, and you're right.
That's
and with an empty,
that's the only time it would matter.
With an empty mag, it would drop easier. And if you pushed up on a full mag and pressed the button,
it was malfunction.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm glad that they've addressed that because, just the other day I was cruising through one other online retailer and somebody had listed like a January 3rd review of their new P10C, and they were griping about the mag release. I thought, well, crap, you guys still haven't fixed this? Why? So yeah, all right. The reversible mag release should do it then, right? So
yeah, because it'll no longer be pushing up on the magazine.
Yeah,
and that was because of the design. The plunger was, you were basically, if the slide's closed, and especially when you had an empty magazine, but even with a loaded one on a closed slide, you were fighting the mag tension.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of, yeah. That's it. So
I remember that was one of the reasons why I just didn't fall in love with my P10. So that and the kind of ridiculous striker assembly and trigger bar assembly, which we've talked about. So I know that drives you crazy. The Rube Goldberg striker.
It never failed.
Yeah. So. Until you launch that little striker drop safety plunger or paw, whatever it was, across the room. I don't want to talk about that. That was weird.
That was user error.
It was probably user. It was a little bit user error. All right.
Too much Blanton's.
Yeah. Anything else you want to throw in there about CZs before we move on to other guns?
No, I don't think so. I think that's all that they've really got on the market for this year. Other than, talk about delayed releases. People have been waiting on the Scorpion Micros for a long time. And apparently it's all due to parts from, they've been waiting on a supplier. They were supposed to be released summer of 2018, and it's going to be summer of 2019 before they hit shelves. But I don't really understand. You can put it together yourself. It might cost you a little bit more, but you don't have to wait.
Yeah, and now SIG's come out with what's it called, the Copperhead or whatever.
Okay,
that
so
is.
that's what it is. I was going to say I don't mind showing my ignorance. I had no idea what the Scorpion Micro was or was supposed to be. So it's something the size of the SIG Copperhead, right? They're
using a HB Industries handguard and a shorter barrel.
Short
They're
barrel. Okay.
basically setting it up like mine. It's kind of a K-cut barrel with a shorter aluminum handguard, and then it comes equipped with a brace, a collapsible brace. I can't remember who makes that. It's the one that Rob Pincus got all up in arms over because CZ posted a picture of a toy gun from Walmart with this brace on it.
Really?
Jokingly saying, still waiting, or it's almost here or whatever. So we don't need to go down that rabbit hole, but
see, I don't even know about that. Now I'm gonna go, I'll have to go search the internet for this after the show.
CZ hasn't directly said it, but it sounded like there were some compliance issues, and like maybe the ATF was partially to blame, some of the import restrictions.
We're gonna talk about those guys after the break.
That's alleged. Yeah.
We're gonna really get into them. All right. Well, in the interest of time, I'll throw out a couple things real quick, and then we'll move kind of briskly towards the second segment of the show. The one thing that I totally did not expect came out left field was the announcement of the new FN 509 midsize, which is the Glock 19 sized FN 509 pistol. And the 509 had caught my eye. I thought it was neat, but the size of it, I thought this is still going to be slightly larger than I would want for a carry gun, be a perfect duty gun, perfect home defense gun or something like that. But for me personally, not going to be the thing I rush to for carry. So I never really got excited about the 509 until the midsize. And they have reportedly made it easier to access the mag release plunger, which is by removing some of the fence material around on the grip. And other than that, it's the same, almost the same size as a Glock 19 or an MMP 2.0 compact, with a really good grip texture, a really good serration style on the front and the rear of the slide, and FN's reputation for extreme reliability behind it. The only thing I keep hearing people say, and mutual friends of ours have said, David's going to hate the trigger, and maybe remains to be seen. I tolerate the MMP's stock trigger on the 2.0 even, and don't think it's terrible. So I'm anxious anxious enough that I bought one of them, and it's on its way. Right. So the order completed today. It shipped. I should have it before the next show, and I'll have some trigger time with it by then. As I said to our mutual friends, my preference for the Glock 19 is rooted in experience and time behind it, not necessarily a love for it. I've got a really good friend that I used to shoot with all the time, would attest that I have a very deep love-hate relationship with the 19. I hate that I love the gun as much as I do, but again, it's rooted in familiarity. I have bought every Glock killer that has been produced, the CZP-10, the CZP-07, the MMPs, the MMP 2.0s. Now I will have bought this, and I hope that it does what the others didn't do. So we shall see. I'm excited about it. Any thoughts on the 509 midsize, Mark? I know you had talked about the new 509 tactical. You're kind of before the show, before we start recording, you were talking about the 509 tactical, I believe.
I mean, I like the feel of the 509. I think it feels really great, and I think it's getting a lot of good feedback. I didn't like the trigger.
Really?
And I'm a trigger snob too.
Yeah.
So, if and when it happens, I mean, I'll be ordering the trigger when I order the gun.
Doing Apex trigger. I think they're the only guys that do it, right? So
yeah, and why go anywhere else if Apex makes a trigger? You know what I mean?
I'll probably do the same. I mean, I do want to shoot it without it first and see, do I even like the gun overall? And if the only thing I dislike is the trigger and I feel that I'm going to keep it, I'll buy the Apex trigger. But
I'm pretty confident that you'll know within 6 dry fires out of the box that you'll be changing that trigger.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Well, that's kind of what it was with the original MMPs. It was kind of, this is mushy. I didn't like it or whatever.
For sure.
Yeah. So, Okay. Well, yeah, fair enough. I look forward to giving it a spin and seeing how it does. Everything else about it gets rave reviews. I mean,
Yep.
Previous guest, good friend of ours, Francis Marion, he loves the 509, and he kind of planted that seed of look at how beefy the internals of this thing are. The dual arm trigger connector, that kind of stuff. I was like, well, yeah, the trigger bar. I was like, yeah, it's a nice looking gun. Yeah, I'll give it a shot and see what I think. So, the only thing I saw that really made me question why anybody would be doing that. This one is a very peculiar one. I don't even know if I had it in the show notes. Standard Manufacturing has got this thing called the S333 Thunderstruck, and it is the picture is hard to determine, but it looks kind of like a small J-frame revolver with a incomplete trigger guard, and I don't know how to describe it other than it's an elongated trigger guard that has an opening at the bottom that looks like it's somehow related also to the safety perhaps of the gun, like it's hinged in some way perhaps. And so like when you grip the gun and pull down on the trigger guard, it splits apart. The lower section of the trigger guard presses against the grip, but the peculiar thing is it's a double barrel revolver. It shoots 2 rounds simultaneously.
The thing looks like it's 3D printed.
It kind of looks like it should come with a roll of paper caps and you buy it at the 5 and dime store for your kid. It's bizarre looking thing. I don't know what to even think about it. It's chambered in 22 WMR. It holds 8 rounds. It's got like a Glock style trigger safety, and it's just nuts looking. I don't know. If it's just a concept into production and they wanted to show what was possible and be innovative, I give them that. But everything else about the gun looks like it ought to be in a Men in Black movie. Like disappointed Will Smith.
Like a paintball gun trigger on it too.
Yeah, it's bizarre, right? It's I don't know. That was the one that really made me scratch my head in the bunch of them, and that's even above the Mossberg MC1 SC 9mm pistol. That I was like, why would you do that? Everybody under the sun's already making a single stack pocket size 9mm. Why would you do this? But
well, not everyone's doing it at Mossberg's price.
Well, not everybody's doing it with a gun that you are able to completely remove the striker from the gun in order to render it safe before you strip it. I thought that's weird, but anyway, yeah. I mean, the Mossberg, as much as that made me kind of like, why? Yeah, but the Standard Manufacturing S333 Thunderstruck, I have no clue what they were smoking when they did that, but I bet they were fun to talk to.
Yeah,
right.
The only thing I can say positively about it is that I would buy one of those long before I'd buy a little North American NRA
right
any mag revolver or whatever. Like, it's sad to say that this thing looks like it has a safer trigger design.
Oh man, yeah, or a Jimenez. I'd buy it before I'd buy a Jimenez or a Lorson. So
Boy, it just saddens me that there's even a market for products of this
it's
quality.
What?
Caliber.
I'm sure you guys have seen it. You've probably all been at a gun shop before, and you see a guy that comes in and he buys the most moronic thing that's in the shop, right? He'll pass by everything that makes sense and, give me that stupid thing that's painted yellow and has gold accents and shoots a cartridge that nobody's ever heard of, right? And I think this will appeal to that guy. So
I have a buddy that has a Bond Arms with a 4570 barrel.
Yeah.
Derringer.
Right. I mean, I look at the Desert Eagle the same way.
He carries it.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, if it's not a conversation piece and you're actually carrying it, then you're a lunatic. But I mean, a 4570 Derringer. Do you remember the really terrible Jean-Claude Van Damme movie where he was in the Bayou country and he was being chased by an evil Lance Hendrickson, the guy who was Bishop in Aliens, and he was carrying a contender, right? He had a single shot contender that when he would shoot, like construction barrels on the interstate would fly through the air and fireballs, and it was so stupid. So that's what I think of anybody that's got a 45-70 Derringer. Yeah, that's yeah. Now I'm gonna have to go watch that movie. I've just made myself think about it enough. I'm gonna go find it on Netflix and watch it and relive the terrible nature of that film. All right. Well, so we're pushing up against an hour, and as I said earlier in the episode, this one's going to be a little bit different, and here's why. So the first segment, we wanted to talk about the fun stuff. The second segment, we're actually going to roll up our sleeves and get a little political. And Mark, for your sake, this will be the part of the episode now where we're going to say goodbye and give you some plausible deniability, right? And do you want me to explain that, or do you want to explain the plausible deniability part?
No, I don't like getting into the weeds on things that are emotionally based by many people, and have very clear black and white sides. I don't want to be a business owner that is very clear on what side I take. I don't want to piss anybody off or frustrate anybody by my opinions. And so, when we talked in the very beginning, and it's like, I'm happy to do every single episode. I'm just not into the political conversation.
No, I get it.
And, that's about that.
Well, I mean, and none of this is to say that you're not a strong advocate of the Second Amendment, because nothing could be further from the truth,
not
right?
At all. So nothing could be further from the truth. I absolutely am, but there are angles within that. There are two sides amongst us, right?
Sure, absolutely.
Not just us as a group, but the 2A community,
right?
And I just don't want to be. I don't want to be corralled into any.
I get
one
it. I get it. Yeah, no. So I mean, really, it's simply that, folks. Mark, as most of you guys know, he's involved in the firearms industry in several ways. He's involved, and really, it's simply best for you, Mark, and your business relationships if you don't stay and stray too far into the political mud, with Jordan and I. So,
absolutely.
It's not that you don't have an opinion. It's not that you're not a supporter of the Second Amendment. It's just that this is all about preservation of relationships. And when you leave us, you're legit leaving. We're gonna say goodbye. You're gonna hang up. We're gonna hang up, disconnect. You won't even be here to witness what happens. So the first time that you hear what's about to transpire, We'll be on the podcast. We'll be on the podcast, right? So, folks, that's the disclaimer that we're going to give for Mark. Hold him blameless. They know not what they do. So we're about to go get into the stupidity. But Mark, it was good to have you as always. Good to see you.
Absolutely.
I meant to reach out to you over the holidays and to say, hey, how's it going? I think I did text you guys Merry Christmas, but my apologies for not reaching out. Otherwise, it's kind of weird not talking to you over for 3 weeks.
Yeah, no, it's definitely
felt like a divorce or something. But yeah,
right.
So anyway, good to see you again, man. Looking forward to 2019 with you. Have a good evening. How do folks connect with you though after the show if they want to?
Well, this is going to be new, right?
Okay.
You can now connect with me at mark@shootersnation.com.
True. That is very true. You can completely do that. I forgot that we set that up. So,
yep. Yeah. So, that's the best way to reach me, actually. And that way it doesn't clog up my Squared Away Customs if it's not regarding holsters. So, as always, at squaredawaycustoms.com, use coupon code ShootersNation to save some money. And if you just want to chit chat or talk about the show or have ideas for the show, you can always reach me at mark@shootersnation.com.
Very true. That's right. All right, guys. Very cool. So we're going to break and we'll come back, and Jordan, you and I we'll be flying solo, man. This is awesome. It's like a date.
It's exciting.
It's like we've been trusted to go without a chaperone. So
I like it.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of freaky. All right. Very cool. Mark, have a good night, and I'll talk to you again soon, man.
All right.
See you, Mark.
See you.
All right, everybody, stick around. We'll be right back with you here in just a second.
Hey folks, David here.
By now, regular listeners of the show are well acquainted with Mark and our friends over at Squared Away Customs. You already know that they are a manufacturer of high-quality custom Kydex holsters and carry gear for civilians, military, and law enforcement. But what you might not know is that Squared Away Customs is also your one-stop source for weapon-mounted lights and other firearms accessories. Mark, Corey, and the gang are now also stocking dealer for Polymer 80 frames and slides, and of course, have holsters to fit. What is Polymer 80, you ask? They are 80% complete polymer frames that you finish out with Glock pistol components. Because you're building it, there's no serial number, no FFL required, and no registration needed. It's a great way to build a custom Glock-style pistol of your own creation. Squared Away Customs offers Polymer 80 frames compatible with Glock model 17, 19, 22, 23, 26, 27, 34, and 35 Generation 3 components. They come in 2 different grip styles and include features like an extended beaver tail, double undercut trigger guard, and a thumb ledge already built in. So, if you're looking for the next level of customization and performance from the Glock platform, head over to squaredawaycustoms.com and check out their Polymer 80 accessories and, of course, their Squared Away Customs Polymer 80 custom holsters today. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Shooters Nation podcast. I am here for this segment with Jordan Linscheid. Jordan, right before the break, and I know that people are probably listening, and to them mere seconds have passed, but just want to repeat to everybody, we intentionally let Mark go at the end of the preceding segment so that he wouldn't be held accountable for any of the political content in this segment. And that's really just so that, for him and the sake of his business relationships, it's just good if he doesn't get too far into the political mud with the rest of us. And I guess probably it'd be prudent to mention, the disclaimer at the first of every episode that, the opinions that we share on the show they're ours, and they don't represent the opinions or positions or policies of any show sponsors or our respective employers or any other entity organization. They're purely ours. So, Jordan, you got anything you want to add there? I don't know how far we're going to go into this tonight, but I feel like maybe that disclaimer was more than we needed because it's probably not going to be drastic. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's just this is something that as members of the Second Amendment community, we often tend to have heated conversations with each other. Not you and I'm saying, as a community.
As a community, right.
And I think that's related to the passion that we have. It doesn't need to be a destructive thing. It doesn't mean we can't help. We can have reasoned and well thought out arguments and discussions amongst each other. And I think we should always keep in mind that, these issues are frustrating, especially when people feel like their rights are in danger. And the passion that comes out is most likely related to that. It's not, doesn't need to be personal or get ugly. And yeah, you are right to be angered and outraged many times, but we need to learn better how to, how to channel and fuel that into actual outreach and contacting people responsible, not just beating each other over the head. So.
Absolutely. No, I think you're dead on. So folks, one of the things that we did discuss kind of impromptu during the holiday hangout with some of the other listeners live was at that point in time, the impending ruling of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, the BATFE, on bump stocks. And it was interesting. In that holiday hangout, we talked about some mutual friends that were a mutual friend that was having a discussion on social media with a member of the NRA board of directors. And, the NRA board of directors member was honestly as frustrated about the thing as we were. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about in this segment, in addition to some other stuff. So I guess, the theme for this part of the show would be, let's talk about some of the crap going on right now in Washington, D.C., despite the fact that we've got this government shutdown that doesn't seem to be stopping anybody from trying to trample on our rights. And chronologically, the bump stock ban comes first, but I think where I want to start right now, just because it's probably the easier conversation to have. The shorter conversation is this assault weapons ban of 2019 that, you know, Dianne Feinstein, Senator Feinstein, and a couple of other senators tried to once again, you know, put through the system and try to get passed. And I don't think that there was much risk of that, because the amount of bipartisan support that would have been required to see this actually pass isn't there right now. I feel like, you know, you tell me if you agree or not, but I feel like the Republicans probably weren't going to sign on to that one very readily, because they already have their constituents aren't very happy with them anyway from last year. Right. So, but you know, it didn't stop Senator Feinstein from trying to do this again. But the thing that I thought was really particular about the AWB of 2019 was this. Not only were they going to try to outlaw 205 gun models by name, and when I'm talking past tense, folks, we don't know that this is past tense or not. It's not dead until this thing's dead. So I think that we all need some urgency here. You know, calling our representatives, writing our representatives, emailing our representatives, visiting our representatives in person, and letting them know fairly unequivocally that there's going to be hell to pay at the voting booth the next election cycle if they get in behind this thing. You know, let them, you know, remind them that they work for you folks. Really, you know, put forth the effort and contact these people. But not only are they trying to outlaw these 205 gun models by name, but it's going to redefine an assault weapon as being a semi-automatic with a detachable magazine. I'm reading verbatim now. That includes one of a list of cosmetic features that are deemed military characteristics, such as a threaded barrel, pistol grip, or folding stock. And it's going to be less lenient than the previous ban, which allowed a features test that allowed, you know, 2 such characteristics. So the previous AWB that sunset, you know, if a rifle like an AR-15 style rifle had any less, you know, 2 or less features, like a you know, detachable magazine or a pistol grip or a bayonet lug. I remember that being one of the ones that, you know, a lot of people sacrificed. You know, it was permissible for sale, but if it had more than that, it was completely forbidden, which was absurd. The thing that about another thing about this current iteration of this ADBB that they're trying to push is that they've expanded the verbiage to ban these adjustable stocks, the Thordston style, that are used in unfree states like California, where they kind of hybridize the thing and blend the pistol grip into the buttstock and try to bypass the restriction. And really they do, because, you know, it meets the spirit of it. It's not a pistol grip. It is a stock, but they're going after that stuff too. And they're also going to try to get us back to the point where magazines with, you know, capacity of more than 10 rounds would be prohibited from transfer, and guns grandfathered when the ban takes effect would be required to be locked up when not in use. Right. So you think about that, like you know, any of your handguns or rifles that have, you know, capacity of more than 10 rounds, you know, you can't transfer them. And they have to be locked up if you're not using them, which I assume would mean legal, lawful carry, but certainly would mean, you know, if you're not at the range with it. So the whole thing is complete garbage. And they've shown their true colors by saying, hey, look, you know, remember all that time when everybody said we're not coming after your guns? No, we're really coming after your guns, right? That's the way it felt to me. I mean, that was a lot of me talking. Jordan, what do you think?
Oh, it's always a dangerous question, David. I'll say this. I think this might be weird, but honestly, the assault weapons ban 2019, I mean, Feinstein has to have introduced this or a similar assault weapons ban as many times as Dennis Kucinich ran for president.
Yes.
Not more. But and, you know, honestly, I think this is a little bit of political posturing. I mean, it's a horrible bill for all the reasons that you laid out and many others. But I don't think that the Democrats are going to, in the House, are going to be expending much political capital to get this pushed through.
Yeah.
I think this is kind of a rally the base. I mean, I do have, not that I'm some great expert, but I do have a fair amount of political history.
Well,
background.
you track this very closely, more closely than maybe I do even. So,
and especially living in the first in the nation caucus state, because right now we're, Elizabeth Warren's traveling my state, and
I'm sorry,
there will be many more to follow. Yeah, it really does suck. Anyhow, I don't think that I'm too worried about this passing. Not because I have some great confidence in the Republicans to vote it down. I think they're trying to inspire the Democrat politicians that are pushing this, sponsoring this. This is a rally the base, show them that we're trying to do something, get our talking points out there, but it's not like they're really championing this. What's really got me more concerned is something that a Republican senator has introduced.
Oh, okay. Hit me with it.
Marco Rubio's red flag.
Yeah, the red flag. Yeah.
Protection order bill. That's what I'm honestly more worried about.
Can you summarize that for the listeners that aren't familiar?
So I think if I remember correctly, there are 13 states right now which have some form of extreme risk protection order, which is the really nice, fluffy way of saying due process after confiscation.
Right.
It's a mechanism by which a family member or a friend could go to a judge and say, and there've been several situations we've seen recently where a notable mass murder has occurred, and someone will say, well, why was this person allowed to have a gun? Cops were called on them, they were reported this many times, nothing. Why'd they have a gun? And so this, red flag law or extreme risk protection order, it puts in place a mechanism by which someone can say, hey, this, I think this person's mentally unstable. I'm afraid they might cause harm to themselves or other people. And so you go and talk with the judge in a closed room, and the judge, if he believes your story, will say, well, of course, I don't want to be responsible for being the guy that let this lunatic, potentially go off on a mass murdering spree. So they're almost always granted.
Sure.
And what happens is the boys in blue will show up 5 a.m, like happened in Maryland in some cases, and come looking for your firearms, and you have no idea. Which, does it make sense? Because, the intent of the law being to make sure you're not a threat, they're coming to try and scour your house for weapons before you could have an opportunity to do anything. But We've seen several times just recently. Florida's one state that just implemented them, Maryland, I believe Indiana. And there's a couple examples just from the past 3 months of police officers showing up to enforce or enact a red flag or extreme risk protection order and being shot at or exchanging fire with the homeowner, and not out of some malicious. It's just, what happens when you hear loud banging on your door at 5 a.m. and you show up with a gun in hand to respond to the threat, or they bust your door down and come in and you think it's just home intruders. So what's really terrifying about this is, we're completely disregarding due process. You're assumed to be guilty until you prove yourself innocent. That's a lengthy and very expensive process. And in the meantime, you're defenseless. I really wish I could remember this woman's name, but a few years ago, there was a woman here in Iowa who had an abusive either spouse or boyfriend that she had reported. And they ended up, the local law enforcement ended up taking her guns away.
Oh my!
Because they, I don't know if it was related to statements she'd made or what, and she ended up being killed
that's
by
terrible.
her husband or ex-boyfriend.
Whoever the estranged person was.
Yeah. And it was a really sad situation where someone that was a gun owner that had gotten a concealed carry permit and gone through the training, was disarmed and left defenseless as a result. And what's really sneaky about this, David, this red flag law, this isn't even though it's presented at the national level, it's not actually nationwide implementation. So what we've been seeing more and more, and especially in the past 2 years under a Republican president and House and Senate, there really hasn't been anything at the national level other than the fix NICS expansion, which got pushed through. Right. Which that's a whole other ball game. Don't get me started down that road. And then also our president's bump stock ban. Yeah. But we've seen lots of infringements happening, lots more gun control measures happening at the state level, and that's the new tactic, because and this isn't just this isn't a partisan issue. There's plenty of Republicans and Democrats who support your right to defend yourself, and plenty of both who want to strip those rights away from you. And so the tactic is, well, if we can't do it federally, if it's too great of a battle to win, it's gonna be a death by 1,000 cuts at the state level. So this bill actually incentivizes and says, tell states, hey, you want to be eligible for grants and all different kinds of funding. Okay, well then go ahead and implement, red flag laws or extreme risk protection orders.
This is the thing that Senator Rubio has come up with.
This is sponsored by Rubio. Yeah. There's several other Republicans and Democrats, plenty of Democrats happy to sponsor this bill. And they're sneaking this in saying, hey, look, if you want to suck on the federal teat, you need to pass a protection order law in your state that meets these minimum requirements.
So sad thing. Yeah, sorry. I want to stop for a sec though, because there's a lot there. You covered a lot of material in a very short period of time, and it's all stuff that I think that I hope that our listeners are paying attention to. So several things jumped out at me. I'm with you. This no knock warrant stuff, or knock warrant, bust down the door warrant stuff at dark hours of the morning or night to try to catch you when you are least likely to be a threat. Just bad police tactics. And there's a lot of really good police officers and a lot of really good police departments out there that are not going to do that sort of stupidity. But then you've got the others that their training was wrong, or the bureaucrats in charge of the department have got their thinking all wrong, and they do execute confrontational search like that, and that's just bad all the way around. It's bad for the citizen, it's bad for the police officers. That's bad, right? So that's one of those things that definitely is worrisome. I would hope and encourage anybody that's listening that has any pull in that space, if your state does these red flag wellness searches and confiscations, I'm sorry for you, but if you've got any pull at all with the police bureaucracy, be an advocate that kind of confrontational thing is not the way it's done. It's just, the whole purpose of these laws, and I'll get into that in a second, is supposedly for wellness. Let's not turn it into something that gets people killed, on either side of the badge. Right. So, and back to that point, I've got all the same problems you do with this. I think that bypassing due process is crap. I think that it opens the door for egregious abuse of this, especially considering that, essentially anybody can initiate that inquiry on whether or not a person is mentally competent enough, emotionally balanced enough to have a gun, or if they should be confiscated. And like, to your point, it's guilty until proven innocent, and proving your innocence is a lengthy and expensive process. What's to stop the government from using this against people? And I know that maybe sounds a little George Orwellian, but it's kind of not. I mean, it could easily transpire. So that sucks. But, kind of looping back to where I was going to start, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? And so I'm sure that this seems like a good, rational idea to people. It's another way to, stop lunatics from hurting individuals. Short of, the sci-fi technology of Minority Report, where we can predict what's going to happen, and we arrest the person before they commit the terrible, heinous crime. This seems reasonable, right, at a surface level, but it's really not, especially when you think about why due process exists and why we are supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, and by a jury of our peers. This bypasses all that crap, and it's kind of scary. I mean, what's to stop your neighbor from seeing you unloading your range bag and taking it in the house and making the phone call and red flag, enacting a red flag visit, or your
political discussion with family members,
right,
about
or your elementary school student, your child in elementary school, their teacher oversteps boundaries and asks, hey, who here's got a gun in their house? And the next thing you're getting a visit because of a red flag law. So it's terrible. Oppose the hell out of that. Right. This does not need to be a thing. We talked about bump stocks, right? So that's the other shenanigans that the government's been up to in the past few weeks. And I'll just kind of go briefly over the high level of that. In December, at President Trump's direction, the BATF issued a ruling that bump stocks are, quote, machine guns as defined by the National Firearms Act of 1934, or the NFA, as we all know it. And furthermore, it declared that owners of these devices must destroy them or turn them over to the federal government without compensation. So there's no buyback, right? This isn't like, where a municipality says, hey, if you've got guns that you don't want, we'll buy them back to get them off the street or anything like that. The Fed has said, nope, they're forbidden. They're contraband. You must destroy them or turn them over to us with no compensation, no buyback, or you'll be guilty of a federal felony. And it's the exact same felony that you would be inviting yourself for if you illegally manufactured a machine gun or modified a semi-automatic one fire per trigger pull gun to fire more than one round per trigger pull. If you were to drill out that third pin on your AR-15 and put in the proper fire control components to make that happen, in the sear, you would be guilty of the same thing by using a bump stock, which, interestingly enough, the ATF has completely contradicted what they said about bump stocks back in 2010. Back in 2010, the BATF had a determination letter that they wrote that said a bump stock does not cause the trigger to be fired with more than one press, that it's not the stock that's pulling the trigger, it's the person's finger that's pulling the trigger, and that use of bump stock does not make the gun a machine gun, and that it, quote, performs no automatic function when installed. In order to use the installed device, the bump stock, the shooter must apply constant forward pressure with the non-shooting hand and constant rearward pressure with the shooting hand, unquote, which is basically they're describing pulling the trigger, right? So they've completely shafted us with that. And particularly what I want to point out, two things. One is, if on today's date you're listening to this, and I guarantee it will be after January 10th, because that's when we're recording. If you still have one, you're in possession of contraband. That's just the hard legal fact of the matter. And how would somebody catch you with it? If you what's the saying, Jordan? A secret shared between two people is no longer a secret, right? Yep. So if you advertise it on social media that you have it, if you tell people you've got it, if you take it to the shooting range with you, if for some reason the police are invited into your home for some other purpose and it's discovered in your possession, you've now got a device that's, it's a felony if you haven't destroyed it. So it sucks. And I think the thing that I want to focus on for the remainder of this segment is the ire that people have towards the NRA because of their complicity, in this fiasco, and perhaps how we're hurting ourselves by choosing that this is the hill that that the NRA is gonna die on for us. Not that we're gonna die on, but this is the hill that the NRA will die on because of their treason to the towards the American gun owner. So what do you think? We'll dive into that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just for a little background. If we go back to October of 2017, October 1st, man, it's hard to believe we're now in 2019.
Right.
I don't remember. I mean, Hillary Clinton was on Twitter talking about how much more deadly this attack would have been if he had suppressors.
Talking about the shooting in Las Vegas, right?
Yeah, the shooting in Las Vegas. And of course all the usual suspects were out in force decrying the lack of action. But to my knowledge, it was really the NRA and the NRA ILA, which is the actual legislative, the 501c4, the wing of the organization that can do advocacy.
Yep.
It's Chris Cox and Wayne LaPierre who released a joint statement, or the NRA and NRA ILA released a joint statement, and Chris Cox and LaPierre came out and shared it all over television and basically said it's really tough to nail down, because they said that they believe that the ATF should examine bump stocks and see whether they meet the definition of machine gun. And then they said the NRA believes that oh boy, how was this worded? I should have pulled this up, but that devices which allow semi-automatic rifles to function like, or to function as, I can't remember the exact wording, but to function as a machine gun should be subject to further or additional regulations.
Right.
And so it's like, well, okay, you could think that they're playing 4D chess and saying, well, it doesn't really make a semi-automatic gun fire like a machine gun, but the clear meaning was, hey, we think this is something that needs to be examined, and that no one needs to have these. And that's exactly what after talking with them, President Trump came out and made it very clear and talked about it for almost a year. Before the Department of Justice, they released an initial notice of proposed rulemaking change, and then finally proposed the rule, and then it was published. And I can't remember the exact date, but before April, the 90 days will expire.
Mm-hmm.
I know that much, sometime in the end of March. And so I'm not going to rail against Trump because I didn't have any expectations of anything different, but this is a really dangerous precedent. It's not even that it's by executive and, what's the term? Bureaucratic fiat that we've defined an accessory which functions, which doesn't function as a machine gun. We've defined that to be a machine gun. And there's been no outcry from really anyone in a position of public leadership or authority among the Republican Party, among the NRA. It really was at the behest of President Trump, and he directed his Department of Justice to enact this rule. And so now the community has been up in arms against each other.
Yeah.
Saying, how do we respond to this? And I think, I've been a very vocal critic of many people.
No.
But,
Never.
it's something I feel passionately about because, again, I'm concerned about what comes down the road.
Sure.
And like with the Marco Rubio bill, something I forgot to mention is that you can go to YouTube and find video of Trump advocating for extreme risk protection orders, saying, "I take the guns first."
Oh yeah, he did that right after Parkland. Right.
Yeah, right after Parkland. And so what's crazy is that we're seeing this with the Republican president and Senate, and the Republican, Marco Rubio, who is second runner-up for the nomination, and considered to be one of the up-and-coming stars of the Republican Party, one of the young faces. This is what they're owning it, and they're being more effective than the Democrats could have been. Like at a time they're focusing on the state, we're seeing either appeasement or just, it's hard to know how to interpret this. And I think, I know you wanted to talk about the NRA and how people have been responding to their lack of response to this issue.
Right.
And I think right now with the NRA and other lobbying organizations, what you're seeing is that we're seeing a clear disconnect between the leadership and the members, right? Most lobbyists aren't in any way beholden to the people that they really claim to represent, because their funding comes from other sources.
Right.
At the NRA, it's gun manufacturers, not your $35 a year membership. That's not what's keeping the doors.
Well, yeah, it's the big donors, right? I mean,
it's the big donors. Yep. And so at a time when everyone's freaking out about, this bump stock ban being pushed through and saying, well, why aren't you filing suit like several other organizations?
Mm-hmm.
The NRA is, on social media, still blasting Yeti coolers.
Are they still doing that to this day? Are they still doing it? Okay.
They had to disable. It was the day that that final, that the rule was finally announced, and they said it's going to be published in the next week.
Right.
That was their social media post.
Oh my.
And they ended up blocking. I was already blocked from, I think, mid-October of 2017 on the NRA's, from commenting on the NRA's Instagram account. I don't even remember leaving a comment. I think I just liked other people's comments.
Liked enough of the opposition. Yeah.
Yeah. And same thing happened. And thousands, I have to believe it was thousands, at least hundreds of people were blocked by the NRA.
Oh, well, yeah. To this day, I'm seeing it, right? Because the NRA social media, every time they post something that actually makes sense and that you would like to get in behind, people that are members or not are just wearing them out over the concessions that they've made, especially bump stocks. And another thing that we didn't even talk about is I think it was on the 8th, January 8th. There was also another bill introduced that was going to expand background checks on gun sales, and it would essentially destroy the way that it was written, private sale of firearms between individuals. And that one hasn't received as much press either, but you can pretty much kiss goodbye legal transfer of sale or private sale between me or you, or listener to listener or whatever. And it's the quote gun show loophole, which there was never a loophole to begin with, right? An FFL, a firearms firearms vendor, they were always doing the background checks, or should have been doing the background checks at the gun shows, and if they weren't, a lot of them were getting busted for it, rightfully so, right? Because these are the laws, you play within the law. But individuals, there was never a loophole there anyway. A loophole, says that we were doing something skirting by in a gray area, and it was not gray. It was black and white, legal for you and I to sell individually to each other. So,
and the only thing, when people say gun show loophole, that the only thing there is someone walks into a gun show with a gun that they no longer want. They're not a FFL holder. They just, as they're walking around with it over their shoulder, hoping to get comments from people that might be interested in taking it off their hands. And honestly, I can remember seeing that 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
Just at a gun show this past Saturday. I haven't seen a single, not to say that there aren't, but I don't see people doing that ever. And when I did, it was usually a beat up old, Marlin or 870 or whatever. And that, what they already went through a background check when they purchased it.
Well, that's true. I tell you where you're seeing it, where it's really moved from, and at least in my experience, it's not as much at the gun shows. Gun shows are a great place to go, buy beef jerky and wolf howling at the moon T-shirts, right? And dream catchers and stuff like that. You don't go to a gun show expecting
jewels,
right? Yeah, you don't go to a gun show expecting a good deal on a firearm. Unless it's a private sale. But where I've seen the private sales move to are really state specific, internet sites. And we've got several here in Tennessee, and no secret, I run the largest web forum for gun owners in Tennessee, and close to 30,000 members, and it has a very active private buy, sell, trade, and it's all legal. We have taken upon ourselves to report to the ATF when straw purchases were being done and things like that, because again, you play within the rules, and if somebody is doing something that's absolutely illegal and would harm the overall community, we were going to participate, with law enforcement to make sure that wasn't happening, and that those people, weren't out there doing things. They were, we've had people out of state try to buy, as part of the Bloomberg sting several years ago. And, they were, our members very much play by the rules. They know the laws, they know the rules. And, knock on wood, we've never had an incident of a firearm being purchased by a felon. These folks are doing the right thing. They're saying, hey, if I'm going to meet you and sell face to face, you're going to show me, valid, Tennessee handgun carry permit, and you're going to give me reasonable assurance that you are not a prohibited person. And, we've not had any prohibited people purchase, as a result. But I think that's where you're seeing a lot of that private stuff move. It's not the gun shows anymore. It's a little bit more niche than that.
Well, and it used to be on Facebook, but that's equivalent to
you can't do that there anymore, right? So
yeah. And here's the thing, David, with the universal background checks, that affects such a small percentage of firearm purchases
absolutely
done,
right?
And whether it was, regardless of the percentage, the purpose for that, because you say, okay, well, how do you enforce that? Because, if my uncle and I, we each have quite a few firearms. If I sell one to him, the state has no record of that. They could come to me and say, hey, we found this firearm that you purchased from a dealer back in 2013, and it was used in the commission of crime. And I could say, well, I think I sold that one.
Right.
To my uncle, and then they go to him and say, hey, who'd you sell this to, and try to track it down. But, there's no mechanism once it leaves a dealer. So the purpose of universal background checks, since it can't be enforced, is then, in order for it to be enforced, is then to require universal registration of firearms.
Yeah, well, and it's also threat of penalty of law, right? It's the threat that you and I, law-abiding citizens, our listeners, law-abiding citizens, we're going to play by the law. So we're going to route our individual transfers if something like this goes through, and we hope that it doesn't. But we would route our transfers through an FFL playing according to the law. Because let's face it. We don't buy guns that we're absolutely positive we're going to just love and keep forever and ever and ever. A lot of us buy, we try it, we don't like it, it's not our cup of tea, we sell it, to somebody who does want it, and then we go buy something else. So a lot of that secondhand private transfer stuff is happening between enthusiasts who they see a thing, they think they're going to like it, they try it out, they don't like it, they sell it to somebody else, and the cycle continues. It's not going into the hands of criminals. It's going into the hands of other, Second Amendment advocates, gun enthusiasts, gun owners that collect or shoot or whatever, right? So really the people, once again, I'm reminded of the old saying, and I hate these cliche sayings sometimes, but it's like, if you outlaw guns, only outlaws will have them. But, laws are for the law abiding. The criminals that are out there, trading guns out of trunks and alleys, and things like that, they're not going to do this crap anyway, no matter what the law is, because they're already breaking. Heck, they're not even supposed to have the guns generally. So,
Yeah.
it punishes the law abiding is all it really does.
And you know what? Honestly, David, it's something just that term, law-abiding citizen.
Yeah.
I struggle with that. I don't even like to use that terminology, even though it's so ingrained in me, because law is only as virtuous, or a law has no more merit than sorry.
Well, laws can't have virtue,
no more,
right?
Yeah. Well, the law is no more just than intention, or I'm sorry, law has no more merit than it is just, is what I'm trying to say.
Gotcha.
And so as we're seeing, the law is being changed.
Right.
Your and my actions aren't being changed.
Right.
We don't have any more or any less virtue or any more intent to harm people. But
very much the case with the bump stocks.
Citizen or outlaw, that's a perfect example where you have something that was approved by the ATF multiple times. You've got an approval letter if you held on to it, and now they're saying, hey, if you're caught in possession of one of these, you could be subject to up to 10 years in prison,
right?
$250,000 fine, in addition to all the legal fees.
Oh, and in addition, now you're a felon, right? And everything else that comes with it. Yeah. And all because you owned a thing.
Yeah, and that we 3 years ago reiterated, 8 years ago, approved.
Yep.
And said, this is totally legal. It's not a machine gun. What do we have? We have a president that says, hey, I don't like these things. We need to redefine and ban them. If my Department of Justice doesn't do it, I'm going to do it myself. And and it gets run through. And now we're sitting in election season.
Yeah.
And we're going to have our next president selected. And it may be the same one we have now. It may be a totally different one.
Right.
And we now have a precedent of executive and bureaucratic fiat redefining. And at some point, people are going to have to decide, there's when stuff like this bump stock ban gets pushed through, or magazine capacity restrictions, there's two responses. There's compliance and there's non-compliance.
Yeah.
And we're seeing more and more in states, even in states like New Jersey,
Colorado, right?
California, that people are not complying with these new restrictions. And so they have overnight been turned from law-abiding citizens into outlaws.
Yeah.
And what's dangerous is now, in the news, and this isn't a criticism on you, but you said, people that aren't even supposed to have them in the first place. Well, we've created, when the 90 days are up, according to SlideFire's sales numbers, we're going to have several 100,000 people
who should have had them to
automatically felons.
Yeah, and I guess let me clean up.
Well, and I'm not criticizing you, but it's saying the way that the debate is framed, every time there's a new restriction put in place, more of us become social outcasts.
The status of somebody has changed, right? And I think that's a very good point. And I appreciate you calling me on that, because you're right. I mean, I need to watch my verbiage, and we all do, because words mean things. And you're right. You also said something about the fact that it's 90 days. So you're listening to the podcast, unless you're listening to it after April. You still got some time to surrender your bump stock or destroy it, or be the outlaw that you just described. But I guess what I was getting at is, under current U.S. law, if you're a felon, a convicted felon, you're not allowed to have a firearm. And so the felons, the career criminals are transacting firearms in dark alleys out of the trunks of 1982 Buicks with Burlwood interiors. Flashback.
I feel personally attacked.
Yeah, flashback to segment 1 of the episode. But those folks under current law should not have those items anyway. So it doesn't matter if it's restricted or full auto when it shouldn't be, or whatever. I mean, they're breaking the law, so they're breaking the law. It doesn't, now we're splitting hairs. It's just one more charge that can be levied against them in court to hold them in, prison for a longer period of time, which doesn't happen anyway. They throw them back on the street. I'm ranting, but so, let's kind of loop back to where I wanted to go with this discussion about the bump stock ban and the ire that people have towards the NRA as we kind of narrow down towards maybe the last, little bit of the show here. If I can, I just wanted to kind of soapbox for a second, right? What I've been hearing, and I think what you've probably witnessed also on social media, is the people, the Second Amendment advocates, the community gun owners that are pissed about this AWB and of 2019 proposal and the bump stock final ruling, which was or maybe we should call it a reclassification or rewording, redefining of what words mean by the ATF. They're upset because the NRA, was complicit or didn't fight hard enough or any other variety of things. And what I'm hearing is, well, that's it. I'm done with the NRA. I'm going to cancel my membership. I'm not going to donate to them anymore. Screw those guys. I'm taking my money and I'm going home, or I'm going somewhere else with it. And I guess this is what I wanted to get out. I understand the sentiment. I understand the anger. I'm not happy with those guys either. But, you mentioned very early in this segment, the NRA's largest donors really are, the firearms industry, the manufacturers, and the special rights or special interest groups that are pumping money into, the NRA and the NRA ILA to, lobby and be activists, right? That's where their big dollars are. The money collected through annual memberships, especially if you signed up like on one of the specials where you got a lifetime membership for a reduced rate, that's a drop in the bucket. Now, if we all take our money and quit spending it with the NRA, does that hurt them? Absolutely, it does. However, with Feinstein and Pelosi and the rest of them out there, advocating for these egregious overreaches of government power to ban and prohibit and all these new things, they're going to scare enough gun owners that folks who don't listen to this podcast and maybe aren't completely savvy with what's going on and who all the different advocacy groups are out there for the Second Amendment, they're going to get out their checkbooks and their credit cards and they're going to funnel money right back into the NRA, because this happens every time. Every time the politicians start banning, the NRA gets a banner year, right? I saw something earlier that said the NRA right now is in the red financially, right? But they're saying this is going to be a good year for us because, the Democrats have control of the Senate, and they're going to scare up some money basically for us. And they're right. They are, because people are going to start dumping money in because that's what they want to do. They want to defend their freedom. So they instinctively reach towards the pen. Unfortunately, several things happen here, right? Those of you that are listening and are fed up with the NRA and are saying you're going to just, pack up your money and go home. When you do that, you're forfeiting your right to vote. These big industry, the firearms industry manufacturers, I don't know that they have the same vote power. They have influence for sure within the NRA, but the people who can actually vote and affect the board and affect the future direction of the organization are the members, the voting members. You have to be an annual member or better to vote. But keep your membership. People don't throw it away and cancel it. If you want to change the NRA and you're fed up with them, you got to keep your right to vote, and then you actually need to vote, and you need to put representatives on the NRA's board of directors that are like-minded. And that means that Chris Cox and Wayne LaPierre and the rest of the old school of thought, they need to go. And I'm not the only one saying this. A lot smarter guys than I. Mac from Military Arms Channel saying, or Tim from Military Arms Channel, and Adam Kraut and others are really rallying that we need to change the NRA from within. The only way you can do that is if you keep your right to vote. So I would just encourage you, hold your nose, keep your membership current, vote, and then if you want to send extra money, don't send it to the NRA ILA. If that's your thing, send it to the Second Amendment Foundation or the Gun Owners of America or the Firearms Policy Coalition, go do some research and look who the organizations are that are actually fighting for your rights in court, and throw some money and love their way maybe this cycle while the NRA is still trying to figure out who it's going to be. But that's my soapbox, I guess, for the episode, because I hear that all the time. People are pissed and they want to take their money away from the NRA, and I get it. But I would just caution you that I think, and others like me think, that that's probably counterproductive if you want to actually change the organization. So I don't know. Thoughts on that?
I disagree on a few points, maybe, but I definitely don't disagree with the last thing that you said. And I'm a member of both the Gun Owners of America and Firearms Policy Coalition.
Yep.
And donation to them every month, or it might be quarterly for one of them. I can't remember exactly, but it's the beauty of direct deposit. You don't know where your money's going. Or
we discovered one of those hitting our monthly account the other day, and my wife was like, "What is this?" I said, "I think that's Firearms Policy Coalition," and that's what it ended up being. So yeah.
Yep. So no, I definitely don't disagree with that. And certainly if you've been an annual member for 5 years, or if you're a lifetime member, if you're a voting member of the NRA, I wouldn't give that up. Honestly, I think, and I'm not trying to get too in the weeds, but I think a lot of ire was also raised with several articles that came out about some of the massive paychecks.
Oh, absolutely.
That the NRA are getting.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
How they're cutting lower level people and cutting expenses for no more free pop and water bottles in the head office, which, that's all little stuff, but you can tell, when you see that from an organization, from a 501c3, that there's
the wrong people are getting paid.
It's like when the government shuts down and they turn off the lights on the monuments, as if that somehow is going to address the underlying issues.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I agree.
So and here's the thing. I think, I absolutely want to see change at the NRA and the board. It's going to take a long time to do that with the number of people that are on the board, and the ones that have name recognition. There needs to be reform, and hopefully that'll happen soon. If anything, I told someone this on Facebook the other day. It's like, if anything, if you support the NRA, why don't you send your money to the 501c4 wing, NRA ILA? But honestly, I'm kind of rethinking that, because the only things I can think of that they've really lobbied for recently have been things that I'm opposed to.
Right.
Well, I guess they didn't lobby for the bump stock.
Well, they didn't seem to flex their muscle there. So,
and also they are Chris Cox has come out and said that, and represented that the 4 or 5 million members of the NRA support extreme risk protection orders. Yeah. So that's just something else to keep your eyes on. I definitely think that if you are a voting member and you've got a voice, exercise it.
Yeah.
You should be active no matter what. You can't, and even just sending money to these organizations is not enough. You need to be active at your local and state level.
Yeah.
I would say contact your sheriff and say, hey, with the potential of these orders coming down in our state, what's your response to this going to be? Yeah. Because if your answer is that you're going to assume that I'm a criminal and you're going to come exercise extreme risk protection order on people in your jurisdiction, guess what? I may not be able to run against you, but I'll find someone who can. I'm going to do everything in my power, not threats but it's your county sheriff is an elected official.
Sure. Yeah. No, it tells you who to vote for and who to vote against. Right. So,
and your state legislature, I'm ashamed, I haven't spoken to my state representative or senator yet this session. But as soon as I can get to the Capitol, I'm going to be doing that, going and seeing them in person if I can, and at least leaving a message. But usually in Iowa, it's not too hard, if they're in that day. And I also need to call my senators in particular and see what they think about, Rubio's bill. And they care when they hear from their constituents.
Yeah.
Calling Dianne Feinstein's office isn't going to do anything.
Right.
But when you call as a constituent of your representative or your senator, even though you won't speak to them 99% of the time, that gets tallied.
Oh, sure
and
does.
you need to
Yeah.
make sure that your friends and family and other people are calling,
Yeah.
actually calling in or going if you can, if you live nearby, speak with your representatives and let them know how you feel on these issues.
Well, I think, you hit on the point that I wanted to make before we concluded. And so, let's draw it together there. And we're butting probably up against 2 hours here. And so, in the interest of time, I want to close with that thought, Jordan, is that, the NRA probably still the 800-pound gorilla on our side for the Second Amendment. And I say our side, somewhat loosely with all the normal caveats that should go there. Cause again, there's a lot of us that just aren't super thrilled with the way they've been representing us as gun owners. And I get that. But the NRA as an organization is not voting to elect representatives. They issue, media statements and propaganda and commercials and things to try to educate and inform and keep gun owners aware of who to vote for, who to vote against, that kind of stuff. But the people who can actually affect change are the constituents. And, that's me, that's you, that's the listener. And it's really, I feel like going into 2019, it's going to be very important for us to be willing to get off of our butts and not expect organizations to do the dirty work for us. And we have to write emails and write letters and make phone calls and go visit our representatives in person and let them know what we feel and what's important to us and how we want them to represent us in government. And that's how we can affect real change. I'll make a very big statement. If gun owners would take initiative to do that, we wouldn't need the NRA. And it's just so much easier, I feel, and I see this in all sorts of clubs and organizations. It's so much easier to cut a check to an organization and expect them to do it for us than it is to take the time to do it ourselves. But the thing that has the most impact is when we do it. Your representative notices when hundreds or thousands of their constituents call them and ask for support or opposition, on a subject. They kind of don't blink an eye very much when, the NRA comes along and says, hey, we want you to vote this way or vote against that thing. They just like, yeah, whatever. NRA, we know what your line is going to be every time it's your turn to speak. But it's harder to ignore, the people. So I would encourage you to do that. And that costs you nothing. You don't have to pay a lifetime membership for anything to do that. It's just, make the phone calls, send the emails, go visit these people in person every time you can. So,
Yeah.
Jordan, thanks, man. I don't know. I'm kind of wondering if a political segment will be a recurring theme, but this was kind of like in my face for the past week in the media and on social media especially. And I wanted to talk about it. So thanks for sticking around and doing so with me. You were the smart guy in this one. I wasn't the smart guy. So.
I don't know about that, but yeah, this is a topic that I'm pretty passionate and try to be fairly knowledgeable about. Yeah. And I think we're just in the warm up period.
Oh yeah, I think so. I think
5 years are going to be very interesting.
Chances are we're going to have more conversations like this on Shooters Nation in the months ahead. I think, especially, man, you alluded to it earlier. We're already kind of gearing up for the next presidential election cycle. I mean, 2020 is the next election. That's next year. This year's when it all kind of starts to kick off again, right? So, I don't know. It's interesting. We've got I think Reagan was the one that made a comment about freedom always being one generation from extinction. And, St. Ronnie was guilty of his own, betrayal of the Second Amendment. And I know people don't like to think about that, but he's right about that. It is always one generation away from us losing freedoms. So it's going to be really important, I think, in the year or two ahead for gun owners to take initiative on their own, to be vocal, be activists, be evangelists. We talked about that briefly, I think, during the holiday hangout. What's lacking is evangelism in the firearms owners community. We need to make it normal and sane for you to say, hey, I've got a gun. I like to go shoot. I carry a gun for my protection. My wife does, or whatever. We need to make that normal so that people don't look at it like it's some taboo thing that only weirdos do. So yeah, I
don't know if we're doing anything to dispel that myth, David.
Know. Yeah, it's a good thing that again, without the listeners having video, and I look weird without a beard right now, man. I gotta fix that before the next show. Maybe I'll have to rent a beard, like a fake beard, a prosthetic beard. Yeah. All right, man. Well, so I'm not going to ask how people can connect with you after the show. We've kind of gone over that before. They can hunt you down on social media as Jordan Linscheid. There's not too many of you, but if you see a guy dressed in flannel carrying a CZ in a picture, and his name's Jordan Linscheid, it's probably the right one, correct? So,
correct.
All right, folks.
Thanks a lot, David.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out with me again, Jordan. Folks, thanks again to all of you for making the last year successful. Mark and I appreciate it. Jordan does as well. I know. Want to give special thanks again to our patrons who directly support the show and make future episodes possible. If that's you, or if you want to support the show, you can do that by visiting shootersnation.com and looking for the donate button. Want to remind everybody that we do have a store on shootersnation.com, and that's where you can get hats and shirts. Finally, after Christmas, my apologies, we got sweatshirts and sweaters and all that stuff up there, so you guys can purchase those if you're interested in for cold weather gear. Perhaps more importantly, we want to hear from you. Head over to shootersnation.com, look for the idea link. Tell us who you really want us to interview and what your subjects are that you want us to cover in the weeks and months ahead. And you can connect with us over on shootersnation.com, sign up for the Mail Blast mailing list, and also sign up for the forum. We brought that back. So we have very little confidence that the big social media networks like Facebook and Instagram will always allow us to be participants there. So we have our own social media platform on shootersnation.com. You can sign up for that for free and communicate with us and the guest subject matter experts there. That is it. That's a wrap for this show. We will talk to you again next time. Until then, be safe out there. We'll talk to you soon.
The preceding segment was a production of the Shooters Nation podcast. Visit us online at shootersnation.com.